T.R.U.T.H himself. Thank you for joining us live and direct.
Yo, it's my pleasure, bro. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I got mad excited. I got so excited I forgot to even do the intro that I usually do, man.
Don't worry about it. We don't need it. We don't need it.
Yeah, man. So just so if it's your first time, so you know you're watching the Unity sessions on TLDTV. It's online format today, but that gives us a great opportunity to be able to sit down with the truth, you know? Yeah, man. Just like on a personal level, just knowing what it is for a very, very long time, man. I've been clocking your music, and it feels like just in terms of my lifespan. So like I was introduced to C.H.H around the time of like someone played me like Rebel, and then coming across Jive, that was something else, man. So that's what I always play to people whenever they're like, "Oh, Christian rap, what's that?" It's like, listen, I'll tell you this.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. That's what's up, man.
But how you been? How's the lockdown process and everything been treating you?
You know what? Obviously the coronavirus and its effects have it's been hard. You know, that part has been hard. The sicknesses, the deaths, people that I've partnered with in ministry throughout the years. Some of them have actually passed away because of the virus. You know, people very close to me, family members have contracted the virus, and so it's it's obviously taken its toll in a lot of ways, emotionally, and some other ways. The lockdown and the quarantine, however, has been really served as more of an opportunity for me, to create the Bridges album with Limo Blaze, an opportunity for me from a business standpoint, because I do have a company. I don't talk much about it, but I have a company. And we brokered a lot of international relationships over the throughout this pandemic, or throughout the lockdown rather, and just time to work on my book. There's just been so many ways in which I've been able to kind of use this time as an opportunity to do things that I would not have normally been able to do when I was traveling heavily. So it's been a gift and a curse. It's been the best of times and the worst of times all at the same time.
Yeah. Have you found any like meaning in it? I know for a lot of people they've kind of seen it as a reset, or how do you kind of philosophize or breed your theology into what's been going on?
You see it as a reset?
Yeah, I know for a few people, like, so speaking to different people, they've kind of found different values. For some people, they're like, oh man, like family. For some people, like that hard reset where they feel like they've just been able to sit with themselves, with God, look at things differently. I just wondered if you yourself had found any deeper meaning other than just being, on lockdown.
Yeah. Like I said, again, it was just opportunity for me. It was just space, because the bandwidth gets taken up with all of the things you have to do on the road mainly. So flying, I fly a lot every month, to different states, countries, etc. And for that aspect of my life to change, on one hand is very good. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's really just been about opportunity. It wasn't really a hard reset for me or anything like that. It's just been a great time for me to make the most of. I feel like if you didn't make the most of the lockdown, like you ain't gonna make the most of. You missed it. You missed it. So I feel like I was able to make the most of a bad situation.
Yeah. So what does the company do? What's the kind of the missional goals?
It's an agency. So we kind of function. I used to have a label called Mixed Bag, and I dissolved that label. Somebody else actually kind of runs that, independent of me. And we took about 3 years to kind of retool and rethink, what our vision was and where we wanted to go next. And for us, it became more about being a label and really just looking at ways to create a space for artists to really grow and then send out. Label deals get really weird and tricky, and most of the time artists leave mad, so
Yeah.
we didn't want to do that. We wanted to serve as an agency, really not just for artists. We're working on, well, I can't disclose all of it, but we're working on some stuff in television, working on some deals with Netflix, and we just got a lot going on. And the company on the artist side, still continue. We still want to do what the original vision for Mixed Bag wanted to do, which was look for what's next, look for the cutting edge, look for, and that's one of the things that I found in my travels overseas, is that, there were so many artists that were like, this is so next level, except it's in the corner of, of Jos, Nigeria. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I could find a way to broaden and widen the exposure of these particular artists. And so for that aspect of the agency, that's what we're doing now, which is what we see with the Bridges album. It's kind of leveraging the resources and the kind of the influence that we have, and putting artists on our shoulders, and then helping to kind of expose them to whoever they had not yet been exposed to. So that's been fun. That's been one of the greatest joys of my life right now, is I can take all that God gave me and actually use that to benefit somebody else, and then watch them relish in the moment. It's what Cross Movement did for me. It's what Kirk Franklin did for me. It's what Ravi Zacharias did for me. And it's what now I get to do for others. So.
Yeah. Hearing you say that and share that vision, it kind of makes the Bridges project make a lot more sense to me. Because what was the overriding inspiration in terms of the artists that you picked and everything else?
Well, Limo Blaze is a shining star. He's probably one of the most talented, and I know him intimately. So it's one you can kind of gather that from watching him. Man, this guy is special. Like, he's got a high ceiling. You can see that just at a cursory glance. But when you're up close, it's like, oh, it's even higher than I thought.
Yeah, no ceiling.
This guy is, there are no ceilings here. The heavens.
Yeah. Because it's interesting to me, because I know, like, listening to you for a while, often it was like a boom bap sound. And I remember at one point I heard you on One Blood, the Papa Son album. I was like, oh, wait, is that the truth? I think it was on like the first track as well. So it kind of got me off guard. And then like he pops up on this project as well, right? On Bridges, Papa Son.
Of course.
Yeah. What's your relationship with him? How did that link up come about?
Oh, well, Papa San is a co-legend, He's a co-legend, man. We both been in this for a minute. He's been in it longer than me,
Forever, like
forever.
from when I was born, it was like.
Papa San is another influencer, made heavy impact. Busta Rhymes just talked about him recently in one of his interviews. He's still got his thumb on the pulse. He's still probably one of the best artists of his kind, Christian or mainstream alike. For Papa San, for me, man, it's about, I love it when I can find that it's like finding the perfect woman. It's like when a man says brains and beauty, you know what I'm saying? Cosmetic and character. It's like, yes, that's how I feel. And women feel the same way about men, strength, integrity, and he handsome, So, and if that's what it feels like when you find the likes of a Limo Blaze, or you look at the likes of a Papa San, these guys are the complete package. They're really, really, really great at what they do, but that's not all who they are. They're so much more than that. Their character, they're thought leaders, they're men of conviction. And so with Papa San, man, he's just always been somebody that I've had a high level of respect for. This is our third song together, actually. And I've always just respected his craft and respected his character. And so to work together is a no-brainer.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so the whole project, it fits together really nicely. I did wonder as well because there seems to be something drawing you towards Africa itself? Is there a kind of magnetism there?
You know, I've been going to Africa almost every year since 2007.
Okay.
I've toured there 15 times. I've been to about 35 different countries. And when I go, you know, I go for, you know, anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks at a time. So I've spent significant time, you know, on that continent, different countries. I've built a lot of relationships over the year. And about 2014, when Love Hope World came out, I remember touring out there with Harold Moyo and Bob Fondo. They were kind of on a road with us. And I remember, you know, explaining to Harold what I wanted to do. I was like, bro, I want to put together an album that is reflective of my global experiences. Like, the world is too big. Like, if you know me as an artist, I can't sit still. If you follow my entire body of work, it's the gift and the curse. The people who want me to be who I was on Moment of Truth or The Faith, or, you know, or even who I was on Love, Hope, War, you know, from
Yeah.
album to album, yeah, I disappoint somebody with every album. And not because I'm not, you know, my skill set has been diminished, but because I keep evolving. I keep doing something different, and there are people that don't like that, you know.
Yeah.
But then there are also people who love it. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so and so for in 2014, I was already talking about this album. It wasn't called Bridges back then. I forget. I think it was called The X Factor. That was the original title for this vision that I had. This was 2014, and I started trying my hand at it. You know, 2015, 2016, 2017. I was getting production. I was talking back with producers, that because you got to figure out. I know a lot of the music world out there in Africa, various countries on that continent.
Nice.
And so I was building it. I was creating this album until I wasn't, you know, until it was like, this is cool, not quite it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I took a break from it for a while. Then 2018, Limo's manager, Bob Fondo, started sending me his stuff. And I was like, yo, this dude is special. Like, I was like, I said, just tell him, send me everything. Like, send me everything. I want to hear it. So he started sending everything. And then one thing led to another. And I ended up featuring on his album with the song My Story. And that went crazy. No music video, and it's at like 1 million views or whatever it is on YouTube, something close to that. And so from there, I think I started having conversations with his management team. At that point, it was still no talks of collaboration. It was just, man, this guy's special. And we just respected each other. I gave him a call. I was like, bro, you got something special. I called to encourage him. And but in 2020, I think during the pandemic, Yep. During the pandemic, I ended up talking to Bob again. One thing led to another. And this turned out to be the album that I dreamed of 6 years ago. So
yeah, the timing is immaculate, man, because I think if it was earlier, like that time period that you speak of, I remember just African music in general is never really embraced, you know? It's almost like, you know, CHH kind of had a rep for being corny before. And then like African music, I think for a long time still kind of carried that until your kind of Burna Boys and like these guys have come through lately with a Afro gospel sound. So the fact
yeah,
that you kind of had that in the works and that all happened organically on this timing is amazing, man.
it really is, man. And it's, you know, I was talking to my wife yesterday. I was just like, it's crazy when sometimes I never feel crazy as a visionary, but I could see how I sound that way to some people. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes even to myself, but I can't shake it. Like, I get these ideas, I get these visions. I'm like, you know, like, I gotta do this. Like, I can't tell you what it's gonna look like or sound like or who I'm gonna do it with. It's just in me. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
God downloads that stuff, you know, because this album is so much bigger than an album. Like, this is really a moment. Something's happening with this record. Like you said, I think it's the timing. Providentially, I believe God kind of, you know, uh, made it so that this album would come at a time where people needed it. See, that's the one thing that's about me, bro. Like, I really, and God knows my heart in this area. That's why I'm so grateful to him for allowing that kind of thing to happen so often with my music. It's like, I don't really like producing music that people just like. I really ultimately want to produce music that people need. There are certain albums that kind of get right into a space that where people are thirsty. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
oh my God, like, we needed this album. We needed something upbeat. We needed something that could lift us at this time. We needed something that unified us, something that spoke to this idea of reconciliation. We needed, right? This is meeting more needs than one. And it's sonically, and I can ride to it, and I can dance to it, and it's filling my tank, and it's speaking to something that, man, if you look at the album artwork tells a story in and of itself. You know, there's a Muslim on there, and there's a cop, and in a time where there's police brutality, and there's xenophobia, and there's, you know, and so I really feel like this album meets a need, and it's not just the album itself, but it's the opportunity that the album provides for us to speak on it that helps to meet that need as well. And so we're just grateful, man, just for the timing of it, to your point. And yeah.
Yeah, you touched on the artwork there. I was going to ask you about it. Just to know how much of it is deliberate and what the connotations are in terms of what we get. Because first off, the yellow, I've seen yellow before. I know the color yellow, but there's something about it that's just kind of so striking. And that, so was the color choice? Does that mean anything? Who's standing on whose side? Does that mean anything? Tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, you know, we need to get the graphic designer on here because I actually don't know all the little, you know, treats.
Yeah.
But I do know, obviously, what you have represented there is a landmark stadium in Nigeria, and obviously the Statue of Liberty, which is representative of the two kind of continents. Obviously you have to your point, there's a bridge there. I mean, there's a bridge there, and then the people that are standing in front of it, you know, you'll see a hand on a shoulder, which speaks to again, reconciliation. You know, like, why does the police officer have his hand on the little black girl? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's the exact picture, but that's the idea. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that again, you could bring the graphic designer on here to speak to all the little nuances, but what we wanted to be represented was the goal. That's what we wanted to, because what you see there is an ideal, isn't it? What you see there is Revelation 7, right? You see, I looked up into the heavens and I saw every tribe, every tongue, every nation represent. You see, and so I think that obviously for Christians, you know, that's the ideal. The ideal for Christians, even as we think about, you know, multiculturalism and multi-ethnicity in the church, you know, and which obviously at the heart of that is reconciliation. What you see there, what I'm trying to say here, for the church, the goal is not to, you know, for the church to be reflective of America. That's really not the goal. It's not like, you know, we need the church to look like to represent our country. No, we really need the church to be reflective of what John sees in chapter 7 of the book of Revelation. You see, of every tribe, every tongue, it's not be like America or be like Europe, but these are melting pots. Therefore, our churches should reflect that. No, our churches should actually reflect the melting pot of glory. The melting pot of the heavens. And so that's the goal. It's idealistic, but on some levels it can be achieved, though not ultimately in this life. So
I hear you. So within that, and that said, what does Africa mean to you personally? How do you see the standing there? Is there a deliberate bridge being built for you between the music culture and the US culture and Africa?
I think it's just I think the bridge between the US and Africa is just the beginning of the global bridge that's being built.
Okay.
It's you see what I mean? Yeah. You know, in other words, we're starting. This is a great place for us to start because it's organic, you know,
Hmm.
for us to begin to tell this story, for us to begin to continue to, you know, speak into this, all of this chaos, you know, with the political upheaval and, you know, just a fragmented kind of, I mean, just look at all of our countries and all of our continents are just fragmented and
Yeah.
broken, and there's disenfranchisement, and then there's, you know, there's all these biases. And so how do we speak into that? Well, that's too big of a problem for any one person to, you know, but we can begin to do our part starting here. And, you know, I think the here is, I think that's God's timing as well. You know, the fact that it is Africa and the US, I think that's critical, especially in a time where people of color are looking to reclaim their identity. You know, ancestralism has become increasingly more of a thing. You know, because you know, at the heart of it, you know, we're trying to find ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
we've been displaced historically, culturally, and so it's difficult for us right now because, you know, who are we? Where do we come from? What's our history? It's very hard to find it, you know, because obviously so much of the traditions that have been handed down were oral. We don't have a lot of written documentation, and the written documentation that we have has been, you know, revised, you know, and so it's very hard, difficult for us to find our place, and which is a big part of knowing who we are. And so with that, I think that it is no coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that Africa is the kind of the starting grounds, the starting point for this this movement, you know, towards reconciliation. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. It really made me think, man, because I think as you were speaking about the separation of continents, it just kind of dawned on me, like before sin, I think, you know, from whatever worldview you have, most people agree like Pangea was a thing. There was no separation of continents to begin with. So we only even
Yes,
get that as part of a broken world, right?
that's it, bro.
Yeah, it's made me
Genesis
think as you
11.
were talking. Thank you.
Hey, we were one continent. We spoke with one language. You know, it was to the point where God had to confuse the languages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally.
you know. Yeah, so
Yeah, so on the Chase and Go CP, which leading up, you said you're a cross between a millennial and an OG. What? Talk to me. What does that mean?
I'm just a millennial in spirit, bro. What, you know, there's, you know, um, when most, you know, 40 somethings, not most of them, there are different types of 40 somethings
Yeah,
in the world. You know,
yeah.
my dad's generation of 40 something was, and by his own admission, they wanted to be older faster.
Mm,
So, you know, because they were looking up to people like Shaft, you know, so they wanted
okay.
long trench coats and smoking cigarettes with big afros. And
Yeah.
like, that's what they wanted. They wanted that older feeling at 20 years old. Whereas I feel like pop culture, hip hop culture is a lot different, in that it has closed the gap where even if you're not a youth, you're still youthful. You know, and obviously the advent of social media, um, you, even, you know, my dad is almost 70, and he's talking about Megan Good. I mean, he's talking about Megan the Stallion and Cardi B. You know,
Mm,
that wouldn't have been a cat. You know,
yeah, yeah.
my dad's generation, you know, of 70, you know, when his, you know, mother was, or and father was 70, you know, they didn't know who the new artists were or what the latest thing was
Yeah.
like. But with globalization and this advent of social media, The gap has really closed a lot. So I'm saying that to say that my 40 is very millennial in spirit. I'm deconstructing like the millennials. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm going through the process of deconstruction like millennials and Gen Zers, and lower millennials. So I'm a millennial in spirit, but I'm an OG. I've been in this for a while. I'm a veteran. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. Got a lot of experience under my belt by God's grace, and so that's what I want to bring into even my relationships with other artists. That's the benefit of it. How are we doing albums together? Limo's in his early 20s and I'm in my early 40s, yet we're doing albums together. You see, how is that? Well, it's because the gap is closed, and we and it's a beautiful thing. I think I love it. It's not to be youthful in spirit is not the same as being immature, and so to toe that line and to be able to be a mature man with a mortgage and a family, while at the same time not just have my thumb on the pulse of youth culture, but in spirit have still a lot of the vibrance of youth culture, is kind of a beautiful thing. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, man, because it's one of the things that always used to like kind of worry me about hip hop. I think to an early extent there was a thing where rappers just wouldn't survive, like physically survive. But then I think I saw in so many other genres, like your Mick Jaggers and these guys, just until they're in the coffin, they're making music, they're on tour, and it's felt like with hip hop, for so many artists, it was almost like they weren't allowed to carry on when, like you said, they're at the peak of their skill set, they're at the peak of their networking and their industry and their contacts. And that's when it kind of became like it was almost taboo to be a rapper of a certain age.
Yeah, I think Jay-Z changed that a lot. I think he had a ton to do with that. All the way from the time where he did, Change Clothes with Pharrell. He started talking, go get a suit, get it buttoned up. He started talking like a mature adult. He started changing the language. In his music videos, he started wearing suits, started talking business, started talking. He's like, oh wait, okay. He's maturing the genre, which is part of what I'm hoping to do for T.H. as well. If on the album Vet, I talk a little bit about that, and even the sound of Vet, the sonics of Vet. I wanted to get, the original album for Vet still had too much of what I was not on it, like sonically. So I literally finished the album after a year and a half of working on it, submitted it to Sony. They loved it. And right before they would get ready to distribute it, I said, I'm going to take it back and start over.
Wow.
And so an album that took me a year and a half to make, I threw it away.
What did
Completely
Sony
threw it
say?
away.
What is
Well, they weren't happy, but yeah, they weren't, I wasn't their favorite artist at that point.
Oh my days.
But I think they're happy they got the record that they did.
Yeah.
Because Vet actually did something different. It did what I wanted it to do, which was it began the process of establishing maturity, a mature sound. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Setting the precedent for something other, something different. And so I think that Jay-Z did that for mainstream pop, hip hop culture. And he's still doing it. 444 just did it again. He keeps doing it.
Yeah.
Are we talking like grown-ups now? See, that was the problem. It's the problem that I have with Eminem as an artist, actually. I think about Eminem. I love Eminem as an artist in terms of his skill set, but I always struggle like, why does he still sound like he's in his early 20s?
Yeah.
Fighting and battling with, I'm like, bro, it seems like you should be schooling us now. You see what I'm saying? Like, you should be schooling the young dudes who grew up on you. I think Jay-Z is showing us this is how you mature in this space. And so I credit a lot of that to Jay-Z and our ability to continue to go for as long as is necessary. Here's the thing. I'm a big NBA guy, and you can't you LeBron James is the oldest man on the floor. LeBron James is the oldest, 17 years. He's the oldest man on the floor, but yet the most necessary. And he's necessary, because he's been there, because he's got the experience. He doesn't have the same athleticism. See, and this is where people get confused. They think, well, Truth don't got punchlines like when he first started. Okay, I mean, part of that's by choice. I don't. Even Lecrae said on Real Talk, I used to be a punchline rapper. There's something that changes when you get older, where it becomes so much less about that. It's less about punchline and more about perspective. And that's what LeBron James brings to the team. He brings perspective. You follow him? He can tell when the new dudes are getting jittery and anxious because they're behind by 10 in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left on the clock. LeBron can say, easy, guy, easy. We got this. I've been here. I was down 3-1. I know this. I know how to overcome a deficit. And I think that it's kind of the way I see myself in this genre. And as somebody who sees the floor, I could see the entire floor differently than some of my younger contemporaries. And it's not to say that I'm better than, because I'm still learning from. You see, I listen to Limo. I'm like, okay. I call them. I'll be like, what you think about this? Nah, man, that's okay, cool. Let's pivot. You feel me? Like, I'm still a learner. I'm still a student, but at the same time, I understand that my experience matters. And what you hope is that the younger generation would understand that, which to some degree I think they do. But I do believe, I forgot how we got into all this, but older, yes. But I believe that the being older, having some gray hair in the game is necessary, for to keep the genre, not to act like the police of the genre, but to be the person that the younger guys can come to and say, yo, what you think about this? This is what I'm going through. Hey, there's a deal on the table. This label is offering me that. What you think about that? I've been in all of it. I done sat down with all the labels and told them no. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's what we want to be. That's why it's important for us to be here, even older.
See, I was gonna ask you at the end, like, what you credit your longevity to, but you dropped so many gems already. I think just seeing you because in my mind, right, I have emerging, as a stage. I have that middle period where you're good, but you like you were saying earlier, you haven't reached your ceiling. Then I have like the level of mastery where you're just fruitful with it. You've mastered the craft, and that's where I place you and a very select few others. But the fact that you say you're at that stage and you're still learning, yeah, that's amazing to me.
Well, it's the only way I can stay good. I don't stay good. I don't stay fresh if I'm not still learning, And to answer your question about longevity, here's what I tell people, because people ask me all the time, how do you stay relevant? After 20 plus years, over 23 years in this, maybe like 25 now, actually, how do you stay relevant? And I tell them, by not trying. That's the key to staying relevant. You're
gonna have to expand on that before some guys start freestyling all their tracks. Add a little context.
What I mean is this. Number one, I think it's what we think it means to be relevant that has to change. That's first. We have to define it, because being relevant is not the same as being who you were. It's not being cool. It's not, you know, you know, you hate to see the 68-year-old pastor get up on youth Sunday with his hat backwards and skinny jeans on. Like that's like, you just don't want, that's just who he is. That's who he is. I'm not saying if that's who he is, that's who he is.
It's unfortunate, but it's who he is.
Yeah, but if he's doing it out of some misunderstanding of what it means to maintain relevancy or maintain relevance, then it becomes a problem. And you find that as you get older, you struggle with, man, what do I need to do? Do I need to be like these artists over here? I need to try to do what who am I trying to say? The young thugs or the little babies of the world? Do I need to try to do what they're doing? Do I need to be more like what Nas and JR? Do I need to? It's so many things that you have to, you can drive yourself crazy trying to figure out who you need to be. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think you come to a place where you pump the brakes and say, I just be myself. See how it pans out. That's what I mean by not trying.
See, I'm gonna ask you something.
Hold on. Let me say this. Hold that though. Hold that. I think about going back to my point about redefining relevance, right, in our own minds.
Mm-hmm.
Relevance is about meeting a need and scratching an itch. That's what makes you relevant. I think about President Obama. President Obama, when he got into office, he was wearing mom jeans, a white Azad shirt tucked in with a pair of white Asics sneakers. There was no swag, no, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There was no, you see what I'm saying? The thing we loved about him was not how cool he was, although he's a cool dude. We loved the itch that he scratched. We loved the conviction that he spoke with and how that resonated with the conviction that was within us. We love how he lifted the morale of the African American community and gave us a sense of something that we can aspire to that we didn't even see as a category at one point. We didn't love him because he was he was swaggy, and now we loved him because he met a need. He met an existential need. He spoke to something deeper in us. There's a guy out here who goes by the name of Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Bernie Sanders is, I guess, Bernie Sanders is, I guess, in his late 70s, I think. Bernie Sanders looks like he's keeled over. You always wondering if Bernie's gonna make it to the next. How is it that 13-year-olds are walking around with picket signs? I love Bernie. I love Bernie.
Feel the burn. Yeah.
Feel the burn. Why is that? Because he's scratching an itch. It's not how cool he is or how he's speaking to something meaningful. I'm so sorry, people are calling me. Yes. He's speaking to something meaningful in people's life. He's speaking to something substantive. And so I'm saying that to say that relevance can't be defined by coolness. It can't be but defined by, the right tracks and the right cadence. It has to be defined by something more. And I found in my experience that the thing that keeps me relevant is by continuing to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit and being a student of culture, paying attention to reading the terrain, and paying close attention to the ebbs and flows of what's kind of what the ethos is, and finding a way to speak into that in a meaningful way, speaking into lived experiences in a meaningful way. I feel like that's what keeps me relevant. So it's not trying hard. It's not keeping up with the sound per se. I don't think that's what it is.
No.
It's what do I have that people need? That's what makes me relevant.
Yeah, those are gems, man.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking forward to the book too.
Yeah. And that's why I did It's Complicated. That's what people needed. Was that the trend at the time when I did it? The sound, the the subject, no. I did it because it's a need that has to be met. People were having these conversations and there was no soundtrack. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the book, I'm not writing because that's what artists do later in their careers. I'm writing it because there's a need that has to be met. So
Yeah, man. Yeah. What I was gonna ask you before was because as I heard you speaking, I think it dawned on me. Do you feel like you've made your best album yet, if that makes sense? Or do you feel it's coming?
this is a tough one because, in one hand, you know, I feel like I've done close to perfect, my perfect, not perfect, you know, objectively speaking. But there's a small piece of me that feels like my best is still yet to come.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm honest, I think it's my next one.
Yeah.
The one I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I keep feeling like, yeah, yeah. But
Well,
I feel like the moment of truth, the faith. I feel like I have a few that I feel like, yeah, these were really special, and you know, were really close to my, like, I'm fully satisfied with this. But is that even possible to attain? I don't know. I don't know if any artist ever feels like they did their complete body of work, but we'll see.
yeah. Well, what do you feel like is the toughest competition? What album do you hold as the measuring stick?
Of my own
Yeah,
or others?
of your own.
Right now, the measuring stick for me is the big picture. And the reason why, again, it's not about bars and it's not about like I think people do have to understand, particularly the Christian hip hop community has to understand, like, and they'll learn when they get older that your priorities change the deeper you go. You see what I mean? The
Hmm.
more you experience in this world, the more conversations you have, the older you get, the more you grow in the faith, the more your priorities change. It's why you listen to 444 and you're like, but Jay's not killing it. Well, that's because killing it is not a category for Jay-Z anymore.
Yeah,
He's killing it in one sense because of what he's saying.
yeah,
He's not killing it as an MC. Like, but that's because MC is not in the cards. But like, he's so beyond trying to be an MC. So when I think about the big picture, that's not the MC album, but it is probably to date my most experimental and creative project.
mhm.
That I feel like I get to recapture it and get that level of creativity with this new project I'm working on. You
Well,
know,
let's
to
push it
to
further then. What would you
to
say is your favorite track that you've done?
I don't have one. It just depends on what day it is. I don't have a favorite track. Bro, you figure I think I'm on album number 12 now. I think Bridges is number 12.
Yeah.
So that's really hard,
Did something special happen when you were creating, writing, producing Jive? Help me, because there's something about that track that it crosses over, man. Like for me, part of the reason why I'm so attracted to rap, it's almost like for all the beats and everything, there comes a point when you listen to a lyricist where you end up blocking out the music. You're almost so zoned in to what they're saying. And I think your flow on that, again, kind of like what you're saying, it wasn't rappity rap, but it was so slowed down that it's almost like it felt like a pulse or a heartbeat or something. And then the cover art just feels like it goes with it and everything. Was there something
yeah.
about the track that you think made it do this to me?
Well, I tell you one thing. I tell you one thing. For me, I very much when nowadays especially, I try to actually listen to music in front of my microphone because I need to capture the initial thing that happens in me.
Mm-hmm.
So open up my eyes to the run I see. Woo! The thing that makes you say woo to yourself,
Yeah.
you have to get that moment. You have to capture that moment. You see what I'm saying? You see what
Yeah.
it's what it naturally invokes. What does this bring out of me? And that was just what came out. You know, I didn't have to think it. And that's what music is. It's feeling too. It's what does this make me feel? You know what I'm saying? No. That's it. That's it. Whatever word, like, and I think what happens is, you start there, and then you begin to fill it in with whatever's beating on your heart. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously that song's still relevant today because it speaks to the universal scope of the heart of God, you know, particularly in a time where there's so much racial tension, and where, you know, there's this idea that God has a special people to the exclusion of others. That's what Hebrew Israelism is. That
Mm-hmm.
God's heart for his special people precludes, or you know, what for God to have a heart for his special people means that he does not have a heart for these others. Um, and how, in that kind of context, how much more important is it for us to highlight the universal listic scope of what Christianity really is, which
Yeah.
is God so loving the world, that he gave his only unique son, that whoever would believe on him, Jew, Gentile, Greek, Asian, Black, you know, etc., woman, man, would not perish, child, adult, but have everlasting life. And so I think that it still speaks loudly. It's like the blood of Abel crying out from the ground all these years later, speaking into the universalistic heartbeat of God.
Yeah, I'd say that there's only a couple times where I've listened to CHH and something's felt like directly Holy Spirit inspired,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it's tapped into something. The only two times I can recall is, I'd say, that on Jive, and then that Bizzle response to Joyner that he did,
Mm,
where it felt
mm,
like it crosses over into into something else. Like,
yeah.
it's such a perfect harmonious meeting, which is why I think often when, you know, I'm introducing people to CHH, the way that it meets kind of the world, the street, and the gospel, it's almost like it sits right along that line. You have like the talk of like the haters and stuff like that, but then you also have the preaching, then you back to the choir, and then the behavior of the choir, and this is like, it feels like it's almost touching on like the Pauline gospel, where, you know, he's addressing the issues in the church. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It has a
Yeah.
comprehensive impact. Agreed.
Yeah, and you had some history at a Bible college. Did you go to
Yeah.
Philadelphia Biblical University? Yeah, what was your experience at Philadelphia Biblical University?
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I've done a couple different schools. I went to Philadelphia Biblical University. I went to the Institution for Jewish Studies. And then I went to Oxford uh, School for Christian Apologetics. and that was 2017. So I've done my fair share of schooling. I just like to kind of stay sharp. PBU was amazing. It's now called Cairn University. It's where I got my foundation. Well, I got my foundation being around Ambassador and another guy by Dave Thomas in my local church early on. But where I went and got formally trained theologically was at Philadelphia Biblical University. So shout out to them. They've always, they serve as a pillar, theological pillar for me, and I'll always kind of credit them for that. So yeah.
Nice. And the Ravi interview, so I want to know how did that all come about?
Yeah. So Dr. Zacharias and I, we his death was very hard for me, because it was the first time I ever had a hero die. So it hit me different. But I do know that he is with the Jesus that he spent his entire life telling the world about. So that obviously brings me comfort and joy. But yeah, Dr. Zacharias and I, we connected the year I put out It's Complicated. I wanted there to be, I didn't want to do kind of like the typical like preaching snippets in between. I knew I wanted some sort of speaking to be happening between songs because of the type of record it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to be like the typical, snippet, so I said, you know what? I would love for there to be a conversation that threads this entire album together. I said, man, what if I could get, now this was far-fetched in my brain.
Yeah.
What if I could get Ravi Zacharias, which obviously I grew up on Ravi, reading all of his books, etc. And so I reached out to well, at this point, it wasn't him directly. It was just his people, his team. And when I called, I explained, told them who I was and what I was doing. And by the time I got to the end of my spiel, Ruth Malhotra, who works with Ravi, said, I think this is something Ravi would absolutely love to do. I said, wow. Yeah. I said, okay.
Awesome.
Okay. And one thing led to another. Obviously, I submitted the album. We went through like an 8-month process, and only because he was traveling so much. And after 8 months, we obviously during that time we trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? How do we pull this off? And we figured it would be best served to do it, the way that we did it, kind of interview style and just kind of conversational. And so 8 months later, I flew to Atlanta. And we did the interview, and then every subsequent year, I've traveled with him to Africa, traveled with him to Indonesia. I've done, done a ton of, panels and, breakout sessions at, RZIM conferences. I've done performances. So I've worked alongside of them as kind of a ancillary piece to their ministry. And it's been one of my greatest joys, I could be quite honest.
Yeah, it's awesome to watch as well, man. I learned so much from that interview. And
for sure.
To close, man, I know you're a busy guy. I know you got things to do. How can we pray for you? The people out there watching this, how can people pray for you, pray into your life?
Yeah, I would just say, man, just continue to pray for, just continue to pray that I finish my race well. That's what I say to pray for. Continue to pray that I finish the race well.
Amen. Amen. Hey, so well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a
bless
pleasure.
You, brother.
Thank you for sharing
Same here.
your heart, man.
Absolutely.
Take care out there, bro.
Same to you, brother. All right, man.
Yes,
Peace.
the truth.
Yes, sir.